Welcome to How to Live Slow, the podcast where we discuss slow living for the modern woman and help you design an intentionally slower family life. I'm Rachelle Glendon, your personal slow living coach and host of this podcast. I know all about busy, but I love living slow. Enjoy the show. Well, hello and welcome to episode 66 of How to Live Slow, where I'm going to be talking to my guest Emma from Simple, Slow, Lovely, all about, well, lots of things, but the main thing is why we find it so hard to slow down. Emma is the creator of Simple, Slow, Lovely, which is an incredible, insightful website. She has a huge following on Facebook and Instagram, and she really encourages us to slow down. So Emma is one of the very first people that I discovered when I was moving from minimalism to slow living, and she taught me a lot about slow living. She's a mum, she's a writer, she lives in New Zealand, and she's highly sensitive. She's self-described as a highly sensitive introvert who loves to help others find strength and joy through setting boundaries and self-exploration, which I love. I mean, amazing. So our chat today is a really, really special one, and I know that you're going to love it. We talk about, like I said, why we find it so hard to slow down. We talk about how to create a slow dynamic in your family and why it really matters and how it benefits both you, your partner, if you have one, and your kids, and the things that you have to let go of if that's what your focus is. So it's an amazing episode. I know you're going to love it. You can find everything about Emma in the show notes, as always. The other thing I wanted to let you know about is that I have been putting in some time on my website for this new section called the Slow Guides. There are various little mini courses, I guess you would call them, on this section of my website. It's howtoliveslow.com/slow guides. I've been working on this all winter and they are now fully ready to go. Some of them I thought would be ready much earlier, but it's amazing how long and time consuming creating something like these are, with setting up all the automation and the emails and recording the videos and editing them and uploading them and creating the downloadables for you. And I'm so happy with how they've turned out. Some of these are little pockets from my main big course, The Slow Life, but each one of them sort of tackles a section of the day or a part of your life or an area that you can go a bit deeper on in working through slowing down. So for example, I know a lot of us, following along here are mums, and we often either work from home or we work part-time, we stay at home, or we work in our partner's businesses or things like that, different scenarios for mums. And, with homeschooling and lockdowns and all of that happening around the world as well, I've created the Slow Guide to Working from Home. And it's all about how to go from burnout to boundaries, even when you work from the kitchen table. There's the Slow Guide to Time Abundant Mornings. I know mornings are a really tricky time for families, getting out the door, getting to the different, work, school, daycare, and all of that. And there's little sections like creating family rituals, which is all about how to transform the daily routines into little connection rituals so that you can really, these are the ways that you can be the kind of parent that you envisioned yourself, and how to not lose your cool and how to add some fun and memory into your daily life routine. So this is all about connecting with your kids and the quality time, but without having to carve out specific quality time or specific time for that. How to have quality time in your day-to-day routine. There's a lot more over on the website. Go and have a look, check it out. A couple of them, they're less than $50. Most of them are around the $20, $25 mark. Some of them are even free. So enjoy those. But for now, let's meet Emma from Simple, Slow, Lovely. So I'm here with Emma from Simple, Slow, Lovely, which is very exciting. Hi, Emma. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you.
Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
It's just an absolute privilege. So I really appreciate you making some time. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you came to slow living? I think that's a really great place to start.
Yeah, so I live in New Zealand, so accent's slightly different from Australian accent, and was born here. I am a mum. I've got two amazing daughters, a 12 going on 16-year-old, and a 7-year-old, two girls. And my husband is actually in law enforcement here in New Zealand. So he's a policeman, works very hard at what he does. It's quite challenging for our family life, though, the shift work and that kind of thing. And I a career as a research advisor, research analyst in the police force, and prior to that at ACC, which is like a health provider in New Zealand. And that was after completing my master's in psychology more than a decade ago now. So yeah, so kind of I've always lived a very full, very busy life, and just constantly chasing the next thing, filling up the spaces, the gaps as much as possible. I think how I came to slow living, I always reference it this one point. So I was pregnant with our second child, so this was about 8 years ago, and literally laying on my bed and just in tears, just thinking, I cannot do this. Like, I was working full time, our other girl was 4, and here I was pregnant and wondering how the heck I was going to carry on and continue with the craziness that felt like was my life. And I literally Googled how to slow down or something like that.
Amazing.
And yeah. And so I guess that was kind of a thing. But, looking back, I can see, even though I can pinpoint it to that one moment, I think, it had been coming for a long time. Like, I'd gone through other periods in my life where I'd got to real rock bottom, and it was purely because I was just doing too much. Like, I was totally spent. When my first daughter was 2, I was completing my master's degree and training for a half Ironman and working full time. And it was just like, what? Yeah, I was just burnt out, like totally burnt out, getting sick all the time and not questioning why I was getting sick. It was just from one thing to the next thing, 7 in the morning till 10 o'clock at night kind of thing. And yeah, it just wasn't sustainable. But it took a long time, and it took a lot of hard lessons to get to that point of going, oh my gosh, I actually have to do something to slow my life down, because I cannot continue like this. And that's when I discovered the whole concept of slow living. And because I think before that, I just didn't even know. Like, I didn't know that there was another way to live. Like, I was so sold on this idea of more, bigger, better, faster, because that is what we are sold. Like, we're given that by media, and everyone else around us seems to be doing that. So you just do it as well, and it doesn't actually have to be that way. So
yeah, absolutely. And the worst part about being sold that message is that when we can't achieve it, it's like it's our fault.
Yeah, there's so much guilt and shame that comes along with not coping, and I still have that. Like, I literally just said to a friend the other day, how can I not be able to do all the things? Like, it's still a question I ask, even though I know a lot about myself now, and maybe even why I need slow living a little bit more than why somebody else might need. And that's just it's the way I'm wired. But I'm still, the whole message is still ingrained quite deep in me. So I still find myself asking, why can I not do 100 things a day?
Yeah. I know, I can, my experiences totally mirror that. So thank you for that. I'm sure most people have that exact question. But what do you think the reason is most people find it too hard to slow down? Apart from that, the personal reasons. There's the media and the marketing that we get about doing, but the actual nitty-gritty of it.
I think that is kind of a difficult one, because I really do think it kind of comes back to questioning yourself. I mean, but practically as well, like, I've always been quite honest about how I've been very privileged. Like, I literally gave up my dream job because I felt like it was just too much. So just for a little context, after that moment on my bed, pregnant with my second child, I then, I had, I don't know, maybe a year and a half off, and I was never planning on going back to full-time work, but I got this opportunity to work in my dream job as an intelligence analyst. So with the New Zealand Police, this is what I'd trained for 10 years at university. Absolute and utter dream job. I'm actually profiling offenders. This is my dream. So I decided that I would do it, even though it was full-time work. But it was absolutely insane. Like our schedules, we were both on, my husband and I were both then on shift work. I had a commute. I mean, it wasn't that long. It was 50 minutes each way, but I found I was outsourcing everything. We had a cleaner, we had a meal service, we had daycare, and on top of daycare, we had to hire a nanny to cover either side of it. And I'm just like, why? I'm not even living my life. Why am I doing this? I mean, yes, I love my job, but my family is getting the rest of me, not the best of me. So in saying all that though, I feel that I am privileged because I was able to give that up. Financially, we didn't necessarily need me to keep that. Yes, we went into some debt because of the choice that I made to give up my job, but it was manageable debt. And I will still say that that was the right decision because my mental health was more important than money. And you don't take money or debt to your grave. So whatever.
Yeah.
But I know that there are a lot of people that are in far less, how do I say this, not as privileged positions, and that they actually need their income. They need to be at work to provide their family with food, the power, the clothes, and all that. So it's a real tough one. But then I say, okay, it comes down to what are you doing outside of work? What expectations are you putting on yourself? And I do think there are ways that you can manage a slower lifestyle, even when you've got to keep big parts of it, like your work, your career, and things like that. So I feel like for me, on a surface level, slow living is sold as this kind of narrow-minded concept, maybe, whereas I think it's a lot wider than that, or it's become a lot wider than that for me anyway. So yes, it started with me quitting my full-time job, but it's so much wider than that, and I still continuously find myself having to slow down. But the ways that I do that are maybe different to 5 years ago. Like I want to go outside and smell the air and what's in it, what flowers are in bloom, what does the rain smell like on the grass, things like that. That's how I like to explore slow living now. Yeah, so I think there are ways that you can do it. I do think it's accessible to everybody, but you just have to change your mindset a little bit about what it might mean. Like doesn't have to be this big thing, and it doesn't have to happen overnight, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Like it's not like you would think that slow living is this very prescriptive way. You've got to move to the country, quit your job, grow your own veggies. It doesn't have to be like that at all. Yeah.
Yeah. And sorry.
No, go on, you go.
I've always been more about the mindset as well. And I suppose that's maybe from my psychology background. But for me, like things like decluttering and stuff have been a part of living slower. But at the end of the day, I'm always talking about what's my mindset? What am I expecting of myself? As opposed to, I don't know, more of the concrete things around slow living, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. It's like everybody has that moment somewhere along the way of that awareness, like, I can't keep doing this, I need to slow down. That surface level slowing down might look differently. It might be quitting a job. It might be some other thing. Not doing 10,000 sports for the kids. If you've got like 3 kids and they're all doing 3 sports each, that's impossible. But once you peel back that layer, there's another layer underneath and another layer, and you get down to the bottom of it. It is mindset. It's the way you approach, the words you use and everything.
Yeah, totally. And what I've come to realize in the last 6 months is I feel like after, I don't know, so it's been, I've been exploring slow living for, 8 years now, and talking about it and teaching about it for maybe half that. But I feel like I am just now getting to the crux of why I need slow living. Like I've only just discovered why I really need it. I thought I needed it because I needed more time in my life or whatever. But, now understanding myself better, it's a constant learning process. And I also don't think there's any end to the journey. Like I'm never going to go, I have arrived. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally know what you mean. What has been the benefit for your family with quitting? It couldn't have been easier at the start adjusting, but yeah, tell us a little bit more about that.
I feel like the benefit is having, it sounds weird to say, but just having somebody present, like presence is the benefit, and just having the ability to be able to connect and not be fired off in different directions like what was happening before. So yeah, that's been quite significant, I think. I don't know. I guess my husband and I assume quite traditional roles in the house. And I think it's true, for me as the person who is predominantly looking after the household and the kids, if my mindset and my everything isn't going well for me, then it affects the rest of the house. And the effects just flow down, whether or not that should happen or not. It does happen. And I think that the benefits of me being a calmer person have definitely flowed down to the kids.
That's good. Yeah. And modeling that, like, it's okay to rest and.
Yeah. And to not do all of the things. Although in the last year, my oldest daughter's really started to embrace sports and stuff. And so she's signing up for everything, left, right, and centre, volleyball and netball and everything. But at her age now, she's able to bike herself to some of those things. So it's not as big a thing for me in that, being the taxi driver and stuff. But I've always said to them, one extracurricular activity a term is enough, and they know that.
Yeah, I have heard Maggie Dent talk about, it's almost like the difference between, putting your 4-year-old into 10 different activities because you think that's the right thing to do versus your 12-year-old asking, can I do this and do that, and helping them to manage their time that way. Maggie Dent, the parent, have you heard of her, the parenting educator?
No.
She's Australian. And she says, like, it's actually better for teenagers to be involved in more extracurricular activities than it is for young ones because it benefits them, outside of school, friendships and not being in that clique and everything and just having a bit more, a wider view of the world.
I can see that playing out in our household. And so, I've become a little bit more relaxed about that with her, and she can kind of do a little bit more than what I haven't said no to them and stuff, but, she can, involve herself a bit more into other things. But with my 7-year-old, I just want her to be outside and climb a tree or explore, be inquisitive about stuff and then actually have the time to follow up on that. I really, really hate hurrying my kids. I know it's, we say it all the time, like hurry up, and the hurry to school is just like the worst thing in the world. I just feel like the less we can do that, the better it is. And we allow, if we hurry them less, we give them space to be able to create and explore the world. And I can't, like, the benefits of that are just, amazing.
Yeah, I totally agree. So what are some things that you do then to create that dynamic of slow? Like how's your partner sort of on board with all of that as well? Do you have some routines or rituals that you do as a family to help with that?
Yeah, so we probably don't have a whole heap of rituals and routines as a family. We try and do time where we have time as a family. So meal times are kind of a big thing for us. We like to sit, we try and sit at the table, and for us that means sitting at the table without any devices. So I know it might sound normal, but I know a lot of families just sit there with their phones in front of them, and that's just not what we want. I'm quite big on giving my kids downtime in different ways. So it sounds really weird, but when they get home after school, I let them decompress, especially my 7-year-old. She's just been at school for 6 hours. That's a real big ask. So for her, slowing down and decompressing actually looks like going on her tablet and playing a game, or, to be honest, watching a stupid YouTube video or whatever for half an hour. If I don't let her do that, then she doesn't then go and spend 2 hours outside. And it's her way of just coming down off that being onto it at school for 6 hours. And then, so that's kind of a thing that I've just let my kids do. They can just decompress in their own way. And actually, if that involves a device, it's okay because it works out in the end, and she'll go off and play for hours, with the neighbour or whatever. And then the other thing, though, is making sure we try and decrease the screen time at night, which is, look, my husband and I aren't great with that. I've got into a really bad habit of watching things on my phone in bed at night. when I'm being better, then I will read in bed. But just trying to encourage our kids to have that time off screens before they get into bed so that they can then decompress from their whole day, and it's so much easier to go to sleep when you do that. The other really cool thing that I did, that we were doing, although we're in the middle of winter now here in New Zealand, so we haven't done it for about a month, but my youngest daughter and I were biking to school, and it was such a cool practical thing to do. So we're still maybe hurrying a little bit to get out the door, but then we have this lovely space of like a 15 to 20 minute bike ride where we're out in the fresh air, and she points out things on the way, and it changed the whole day for us.
Yeah.
It really did. It was such a simple thing to do, and I loved it. I can't wait till the weather warms up a little bit and we can do it again. Yeah, that made a huge difference for us as well.
Yeah, I love that. We don't bike. We're at the bottom of a hill. The school's at the top of the hill, but there's a coffee shop across the road from school. And instead, I say to the kids, if we leave early enough, we can go and have a hot chocolate together. And so most mornings we end up doing that. And it's really nice. We'll take a game or something. But it's just that little thing where you still have to leave the house. You're still saying, come on, let's get ready. But it's not like, hurry up, come on, we've got to get to school. It's like, let's go so we can have a coffee before school. And it just changes the dynamic a little bit. They are excited to go, and so they're motivated. And it's not just like you're saying, you've got to get to school, and then you're kind of confirming to them that school's not something they want to do.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So, and I don't know about your kids, but my oldest especially is not great with transitions. So it's a nice little cushioner. Okay, we're close to school now. Let's go across the road. Yeah, it helps.
Yeah. No, my kids are like that as well. Both of it's a little bit hard to tell, I think. As they grow, it'll become more evident, but I'm highly sensitive and an introvert, and I think both of my girls probably are tending towards that as well. So transitions are always easier if we just spend a little bit more time, which for me has always just been like I'm quite an impatient person. So I'm much better at it now, but previously I just used to stack things up against each other so that we had no buffer time. Like we'd always be like, just a couple of minutes late, but not even considering the fact that you need that little bit of time in between, whatever it is, to recover, to move on to the next thing. Yeah. So,
Yeah, totally. What was I going to say there? Oh, yeah, and I realised, obviously saying, we go to the coffee shop every morning to have a hot chocolate, like that adds up. That's, $50 a week or something. It's ridiculous. Yeah. There are options, there are other ways around it, and you don't need to, but at the same, spend the money to do that. At the same time, I think the experiences versus things applies to that situation for me.
Exactly. Yeah. And there's seasons for everything. You won't do that forever, but I think working with what is right for your season of life as a family is really important. So, yeah,
so true. Do you want to talk a little bit about, you did mention decluttering.
Yeah.
Does that play a part? I feel sometimes like it actually can be detrimental to focus too much on decluttering, but at the same time can relieve stress if it's, what are your thoughts on that?
I have a few thoughts about decluttering. So when I first started on the journey, I suppose, to slow living, it was quite heavy, and it still is quite heavily tied into minimalism and decluttering. They're really closely linked, but I do see them as quite, I don't know, kind of separate, because I think you can get very busy decluttering, and I need a less cluttered environment. So clutter, and research shows this, clutter has a really it can cause a real perceptible spike in your anxiety and stress. And this is, well, it has been shown true for women, but I'm guessing that if you took it across to, all genders, that whoever's kind of the main household person, that's who's whoever's spending the most time in the house and is most exposed to that clutter, that it's going to have an effect on them. And I think I think that can be true for everyone, but for me and my personality, I am more triggered by clutter. I've always like, decluttering wasn't a big thing for me. I've always led quite an uncluttered life, I suppose. I really think the value of having less for me means that I can then spend more time doing what I want rather than time maintaining and cleaning my belongings. Like, it's just doesn't, it's not what I want to do. So I have decluttered a lot. I think I've done the minimalists game a couple of times. So have you heard of that? It's 30 days, 30-day challenge. I don't know if they still do it, but I mean, you can look it up. It's a pretty cool challenge to do, but you get rid of, so on day 1, you get rid of 1 item. Day 2, you get rid of 2 items. So you work right up to getting rid of 30 items. And it's like a total of, I can't remember now, but I've done that a few times. Yeah, it's like 3. I can't do maths, so I'm not even going to try. But yeah, that's a really great way to do it. I still do that, still try and keep things lean. But at the same time, when I talk about decluttering, I want to really introduce people to the idea of mindful decluttering, because for me personally, I've always been an advocate, or try and be an advocate, for the environment. I think there's a really big part of the decluttering movement that will encourage people to just fill rubbish bags and put them in the landfill.
Yeah.
Or they don't, even if they're not explicitly saying that, that's kind of the presumption of what's going to happen with when you declutter, because you've got to think about, if you're getting rid of 500 items out of your home, where is that going, and then what effects is it going to have? So I try and be very conscious about that.
And also how did it get there in the first place, and what do you need to do about stopping the flow of the stuff in? That's a really big one. I stopped saying yes to free things because you just, for such a long time, I had this university student mindset of, yes, please. But you just end up with a bunch of stuff that doesn't get used. Yeah, I mean, I have been a little bit Nazi with my kids about this, and that's probably a really un-PC thing to say. I shouldn't say that. But, we know what you mean.
But sometimes I'm just like, my kids have no toys. Literally, compared to a lot of kids that I spend time with, I'm just like, am I a bad mum? So for example, my 7-year-old, she has kind of 3 boxes under her bed. Her room's really tiny, so we don't have a lot of storage space. So I've got some big boxes under her bed. She's got Sylvanian families. I don't know if you have them in Australia. They're kind of a fun thing. So we've got a collection of those. She's got her Lego, and then she's got a big box of dress-ups. And then she's got books, and I think there's one other small thing which has got kind of bits and bobs of toys that you get given at birthdays and things like that. But that's kind of it. I'd rather her be outside. I would rather her go outside and play with sticks or climb a tree. And I will tell them that. I'll be like, I don't care. Go outside and, ride your bike. And I think I've been really lucky with her because she is very much an outdoors girl. She's very much she's quite social as well. We live in a really cool little community here. One of our neighbours, she goes to school with that girl. They're the same age. And so they spend hours together, just back and forth with each other from each other's houses and stuff. So that's really good. But yeah, sometimes I question myself and go, oh my gosh, have I not given my kids enough? But no, I don't think so. It makes it so much easier to clean a home when there's less in it. And I'm not, nobody wants to be cleaning and tidying all day, which is what ends up happening when you have so much toys and so much clutter.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just, I mean, it just makes sense for me. It's just what works for my personality and for our family. And I love for other people to see and experience the benefits of having less as well, because I just think, yeah, it's pretty amazing. It's pretty incredible what can happen.
Yeah, I agree. I find, I mean, we have a bit of an overabundance of Lego and books, but the kids always end up, making things out of blankets and pillows and chairs and stuff anyway, like in cardboard boxes and stuff. So yeah, like the creativity that comes out of not actually having toys.
Exactly. Yeah, funny. The Lego thing is funny. Actually, because I kept Lego for years and years, and my girls never played with it. And I was just about at the point of going, okay, I'm going to get rid of the Lego. And the only reason I hadn't got rid of it was because Lego is kind of a staple, standard thing where it's actually a good toy because, there's so much you can do with it. But I was I was literally about to give it away. And then they went on this spree of playing with it. And I was like, oh my goodness. So it's still here and I'll probably keep it now, for another couple of years. But yeah, books is something I'll never be a minimalist about. Like I collect books and I'm fine with that.
Yeah. Yes.
It makes it my hopes are to one day, this is so unminimalist, but my hopes are to one day own a home that's big enough to have a library. So yeah, I'm totally fine with that. It's my jam. I'm going to do it and I don't care.
Yeah, I'm with you there. How cool would that be? Yeah. We have so many books. It's the one thing that I struggle with. I just can't get rid of them. Like
yeah, well, if I've got a book that's really helpful, and I've got heaps in kind of a space as well, like Carl Honore's Slow, what's it called?
In Praise of Slow is one of his?
In Praise of Slow. Yeah. I will never get rid of that because it's kind of it's a really important book for the movement. It's a brilliant book. I really recommend. I need to read it again, actually. I've read it a couple of times, but I haven't read it for a couple of years. But I'll always keep that because someone might want to borrow it, and then I've got a copy of it. And then really great novels that I know I'll want to reread one day. So, yeah.
Yeah. Amazing. Yes, slow living. It really is. Yeah, it's like you said at the start. It's one little narrow thing, but it's so much as well. It really can infiltrate like all of your life and every little way that you do things and the decisions that you make. Like we're getting to the nitty gritty of like Lego and books, but actually also mindset, and it's just so important.
Well, I just think like over the last 6 months for me, what it's meant is that I've actually had time and space to deal with some really, really big, like I'm going through therapy at the moment for complex childhood trauma, and it's meant that I've actually had the space I've had the space to do that and actually do the homework outside of that therapy session. But it's also made me realize, why I chose or chased being busy in the first place. And I talk about this quite a bit, but busyness is just like a drug for me. It's something that I use so that I don't have to deal with significant emotional stuff that's going on for me. And so, and there's a lot of other stuff in there as to how I grew up and why striving and perfectionism and all that is all tied into that. If you're busy and constantly on the go and doing something, then there's less time to be able to listen to yourself and be in tune with yourself and be able to deal with different things. So there's not as much time for, I guess, growth and self-improvement.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
It makes total sense. And I really like that way of putting it, that keeping yourself busy is like a drug. And like in the sense that we use drugs or we use like things to keep ourselves, to distance ourselves from our pain. Any other kind of.
It really is. And I don't use it lightly because, I know a lot of people who have been damaged by actual drug addictions. And I don't mean to take away from that when I say that, but I think that I really, marriages fall apart because people work 19 hours a day. Like the destruction of being busy and working yourself to death is actually true. Like it's not a joke. It's not a joke. And I really think that when you're pushing yourself that far, you are running away from something. Like, well, I know for me that's true, and I know for a lot of other people that's true as well. So having the space to actually explore why you keep doing, running on an empty tank is a really important thing for me.
Yeah, me too. So much to be said about that, like that workaholic nature, but also like peeling back those layers to reach the identity that's underneath of like, well, if I'm not working to prove something, like what are you proving? If I'm not working, who am I? And it's just so much in there.
It's really huge, and I mean it's actually not an easy path to walk. Like it requires quite a lot of bravery because what you uncover you might not necessarily like it, or you might it can be very, very confronting just sitting with silence or nothing. I've written about just the concept of doing nothing or having blank space or white space. It can be really confronting because then you're like, what's left? What am I? Who am I? Yeah, if we don't give ourselves the opportunity to discover that, then
I know. Like what is the outcome going to be? Like the whole purpose of life is to peel back those layers, right?
Yeah, I think so. And just constantly just questioning and asking myself why I'm doing what I'm doing. Why am I choosing to spend my time doing this? Is it in line with what I feel like is my current purpose, or is it in line with my values, etc., etc.? And it's so freeing. Like I'm just such a different person now that I feel free to be able to say no. And I know it's such a valuable lesson, and it's quite a hard one to learn, and you really have to distance yourself from the expectations of other people to be able to do it. But I love it. I love saying no now.
Yeah. I know. Default to no. No thanks. Thanks, but no thanks.
I think it is becoming a little bit more, acceptable to say no. I really do think that the next generation that are coming up, the generation that I'm raising, I think that I really have a lot of hope and confidence that they are going to be so much more self-aware and understanding of stuff like this. I do really think it was a sort of a bygone era of like maybe my parents and a little bit later of their era of just this, yes, I'll do everything kind of thing that's dragged into our generation. And I think things are changing. People are more aware of things like boundaries and stuff, and it's good. It's a good thing.
Yeah, it is a good thing. It's a great thing, really, particularly for our girls, I think, as well.
Yes.
Like you were saying about like the gender roles. Like in my house, it's very standard gender roles, but I like to say we put a modern spin on it because we've intentionally chosen it to be this way rather than I can't work because I've married. But it works for our family, and I still think, there's importance for my husband to be, a good role model as a dad and show the boys, but also to not expect our girls, like your girls or society's girls, to feel like they have to do both if they want to be a mum and work. And, that's where the pressure is really. And that's why I think it's so important, the stuff that you share of it's actually okay to choose to pause while your kids are young.
Yeah.
All the more reason to choose an aware partner for that process.
I totally agree with that. I can't really speak to sort of the feminist or patriarchal viewpoints around this because I'm not I'm not overly knowledgeable about it, but I have been exploring it a lot more. And I definitely think that it's always been harder for women to say no. In the home, in the workplace, the expectations around women, I think, have always been more. It's just the way it is. And like, we are slowly changing that. But yeah, how we are bringing up our kids is how we're going to change it. It's going to change at the level of household and family, not at a bigger level.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate you taking some time to chat with us. Before we go, do you want to let everybody know where the best place to find you is? And I'll pop the links for that in the show notes. But yeah, just let us know.
Cool. Thank you. It's been really nice to chat and connect with you. Yeah, so I do run a website, simpleslowlovely.com, and I write on there semi-regularly. I have like a goal of writing there once a week, but yeah, I also like to, practice what I preach, and life is life and stuff happens. So, it doesn't always happen like that, but I'm very active on Facebook, so you can find me there, and I'm on Instagram as well. And yeah, if people want to come say hi, I would love that. It would be really cool.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's been great.
That's it for another episode. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you'd like to connect further, the show notes from today's episode, including all the social links and free resources, are over on my website, howtoliveslow.com/podcast. Have a beautiful week ahead, and I'll speak with you again soon.